So check it out. You go to our Restore University Facebook, YouTube channel, search for Literature Review. I believe there is a presentation I did there. If you don't find mine, then you'll find one from Mr. Kato Malay. He did one also on Literature Review. So that means that this one basically will be the third presentation, if I'm not mistaken. But definitely the one from Mr. Kato is there. So Literature Review is the second chapter of your proposal. And you basically discover articles that have been written about your subject or about your research problem, and then you use that literature review to identify the gaps about the problem, and then also identify how people have been approaching the problem, how the problem has been addressed, and whether the way the problem has been addressed is the appropriate way. So it basically gives you insights on the way you should frame your methodology, on the way you should frame your questions, and how you can also, after reading the literature review, you can also go back and refine some parts of your research objectives and research questions. So what you basically need to know that research is not usually a linear process. It's where you move some 2 steps ahead, and then you discover some things, and then you come back and rectify them according to what you have discovered. And then that is actually very, very common with the qualitative research. With the qualitative research, even when you are already collecting data, you can still come back and redefine some of the, for example, the tools that you're using in collecting data. So that means that literature review is very, very, very key. And in this presentation, we're going to look at different resources that you can use for literature review. What techniques can you employ, and then also we shall look at how you can evaluate literature. Because not everything that is out there that it is actually work that you can use in your literature review section. So that means that you need to have what we call the critical appraisal skills. And that is also something that we are going to look at in this presentation. So why do we need the literature review? Like I've said, it gives you an understanding of the whole research problem that you are looking at. Okay, so it means that you are able to identify the gaps, and you're able to refine your research problem in a way that allows your work to contribute towards knowledge generation or towards finding a solution for a problem. And therefore you can use it in adjusting your research questions, in adjusting your research objectives, and also in adjusting your methodology. But also conducting a very comprehensive literature review. By the end of that literature review, the person will actually now understand the justification for why you need to do the research study. Okay? Basically, the problem statement points out that research gap, and then also the literature review confirms that indeed this gap exists. Okay, so there is an interconnection with the other parts of the literature of the research proposal. The literature review is linked to the introduction. The literature review is also linked to the methodology. So where do we get this information? Like I said, literature review is about researching or searching for information that has been published about your topic, okay, about your research problem. That's what you're looking for. So where do you get this information? You can use books, you can use reports, you can use journal articles, you can use online databases and web databases. Okay. So what are these books? It can be the typical textbooks. Okay. So for example, you're doing a study on the factors associated with hypertension, or prevalence and risk factors for hypertension. The risk factors for hypertension are documented in the textbooks. So some of the references you get them from there. If you're going to talk about lifestyle, is it smoking? Is it taking fatty foods? Is it not exercising? Is it a genetic predisposition? All these factors are there in the book, so you go and read the books and then you reference them properly. No problem there. And for prevalence, yes, you can still use the books, especially if they are recently published. But most cases, you go for research studies that have been published in what we call journals. So we call them journal articles. Okay. And those of you who are not familiar with journals, it's like when a journal is a collection of research articles that have been written about a particular topic. So you can have, for example, journals can include the Journal of Nursing Education, the Journal of Public Health, the Journal of Healthcare Management, the Journal of a lot. Okay, everything has they have these journals. So these journals, some of the journals are what we call open source journals, where you can access it without paying something subscription to access these journals. But you can also have journals where you need subscription. Okay, so they can be monthly subscription or annual subscriptions, or institutional subscriptions. Okay, so an institution subscribes to a particular journal, and then the students and the staff can access all the research articles via the institutional login details. Okay, that is also one way of accessing these journals. So journals are very, very important to use because they allow what we call peer review. Peer review is when you work on your research report and you have everything properly documented, you can submit to the journal, and then the journal gets what we call reviewers, people who will look at your research and say, yes, this work meets the standards, academic standards or research rigor that is required for this journal, and then you get published. Okay, that article gets published. Okay, so often the word you get published is somehow used, but the article now gets published in the journal, and then other people can be able to access it. And that is part of what you call research dissemination. So peer review is very important because the expert people in that area are the ones to look at this one and see whether it meets the acceptable standards for publishing. Publishing is very important in the higher education. If you want to become a lecturer, with the time you should be expected to be publishing work. Your output is measured in terms of research articles, not in terms of how many lectures have you conducted. That is something that we are not really having in the country. There are some universities, if you have not published particular number of articles in a year, your contract will not be renewed. And then also for PhD programs, we have PhD programs where you cannot graduate if you have not published at least 3 articles in your PhD study. So that means that research is taken very seriously. And I've also told you that if you are good at research, some universities, especially in Europe, can actually take you, Europe and even the US, they can take you for PhD directly without going for a master's. If you're very good at research, if your research potential is high. So that means that your ranking in terms of research potential, of course, comes from the fact that you have published some papers in respectable journals. The word respectable journal is very important. Respectable, or what you can call reputable journals, because of course, just like in any business, you will have fake journals coming up saying we shall publish your work, and then you get those points that will require your contract to be extended. Okay, so there are also fake journals, so you should be aware of which journals are reputable, which journals are not reputable, such that you know where to publish your work. So the criteria for evaluation of these research articles is very extensive, and your paper can be rejected if it doesn't meet the criteria. So that's why publishing becomes very, very important. Okay, but also some people believe that publishing is actually a problem. If you read about the types of biases in research, one of the types of biases is what you call publication bias. So publication bias is that there is an assumption that the papers that get published are the ones that are very good, and yet you can have very good research articles that have not been published. And there are quite a lot of examples. And some of the major breakthroughs, I remember the person who made the breakthrough for COVID-19 vaccine. One of the vaccine made from mRNA, that is the messenger RNA, messenger RNA. The person who was doing that work, her work was rejected. Her work was rejected by several universities, and actually she was regarded as a failure. But when COVID-19 came, and then she again explored her work, and that was the breakthrough, and vaccines that are made from what we call messenger RNA became possible, became a reality, and many vaccines are going to be made from that technology. So be aware of that not all research articles that have been published are actually of good quality. Sometimes you can have very good research articles that have not been published. So there's that what we call publication bias. And then also there is a disproportion in terms of who publishes these research articles. Often people who have the resources will publish the articles. Okay, if you don't have money, it is very difficult for you to do quality research, and therefore you don't get published. Those who have the money will be able to get their work published. So for you who doesn't have the money, it doesn't mean that you cannot do quality research. So that is also another angle to publication bias, is that often research comes from people that already have the resources. Okay, and then for you who don't have the resources, you get problems. Just like the challenges that you're facing in your literature review, is that you look for South Sudan information, you can't get it. But by experience, I've tried one library for for one UK university. So I entered that electronic library, looked for information on South Sudan, and the information was abundant. There was abundant information on South Sudan, and then yet for us, we actually don't have access to that kind of research or that kind of information. So usually people who have the money, who have the resources, will be able to publish their work, and then for you, you can't. So the reputable journals, and if we were to list the reputable journals globally, you will find out that most of them are not in Africa. They're actually in the developed world. So you have such issues. And even the examples that we have here, the online databases, Medlin, the Comprehend, the PubMed that we shall talk about, the Medlin, all these are databases that are not managed by African countries. Okay, so review the article. I've explained that. People look at your work and say, yes, this work is okay, this work is not okay. You can have databases that you can search, okay? And the examples, the PubMed, the Medlin, the ones that have given, they have the search function, where you can refine your search in terms of which language, which articles you want, when were they published, they should be about what topic, and things like that. There are very many. These databases can be classified according to if you are a person of healthcare management or public health, there are particular databases that you can use. Medlin is for biomedicine and health. So that means that people who do healthcare, health sciences, nursing, medicine, dental surgery, midwifery, that's biomedicine. And then people who do healthcare management, public health, others can search still in Medlin. So Medlin has a lot of articles that you can access. Still, it is not, it is the property of the government of the US, just like what you see there. Okay, so that means that you can still get some information that is relevant, but it's not really contextual in terms of South Sudan. Okay, South Sudan, they tried to make what you call the South Sudan Medical Journal. If you type that in your browser, you think you should be able to get it. There are some few articles there, but of course, the quality of the articles is something that is a big challenge with that journal, okay, and the number of articles and things like that. So there's a lot of work to really to be done, and also the awareness about that journal. South Sudan Medical Journal has been in existence for some years now, but it's not something big. I wish it is owned by the government, but it is where some very motivated researchers put it at. Okay, so there is always that gap. That's why we have these databases here that we are referring to. But there are also databases from UN organizations that you can really use. And that means that you really need to be familiar with the topic that you're dealing with. You should know which organizations are very, very good in the topic that you are dealing with. If you're dealing with any topic to do with the productive health, you should be aware that UNFPA is the go-to place. Okay, if you're going to deal with issues to do with malnutrition among children, you should know that UNICEF is the go-to area. If you're going to do anything to do with HIV, then the numbers, you should get them from UNAIDS. If you're going to do anything to do with the economy, development, social transformation, UNDP. If you're doing anything to do with food security, food insecurity issues, Food and Agriculture Organization is where you go to. almost all health related topics. You can get the information from WHO sources. So usually we can term these sources as what we call gray area. These are not, the information that you get there is not often information that is published in our traditional journals. Okay, so non-academic, non-publicized reports or publications, we often call them gray literature. So that means that you really need to know which organizations are dealing with the health problem that you are investigating, and try to check their websites. This information is freely available on their websites. So, for example, mortality rates in South Sudan, that information should be there on the UNFPA website. It shouldn't be very difficult to get. And then if you want to get issues to do with early child marriage, UNFPA, please. Domestic violence, UNFPA. A lot of things, you can use that. And then, of course, the UN OCHA. Okay, UN OCHA, they should have, usually the one who coordinate what we call cluster meetings, cluster interactions. They basically also can be a good source for you to start digging for information. Ministry of Health, the Directorate of Monitoring and Evaluation Research and Planning is the one that is concerned with. Ideally, it is the one that where we should be getting that data. Any data on any health indicators in the country, we should be getting it from the ministry. The last time I checked the ministry website, there was some information there, but it was not, the website was not regularly updated. So yeah, and also some of these agencies, South Sudan Commission, I don't know whether it is South Sudan Commission on HIV, those entities they can also have data on their websites if they have them. So those what you can call disease-specific programs. For example, the Commission on HIV in South Sudan can have data. The National Bureau of Statistics, South Sudan National Bureau of Statistics, can also have data about anything that you can. And then recently also UNFPA conducted what they called it was a mini demographic survey. Okay, they sampled, so that survey really is one of the most extensive surveys, I think, after the 2010 census, I think. So you can also check out that report, the UNFPA survey, estimation survey. So that estimation survey also contains a lot of information about different health outcomes in the country. So you need to check that out. So basically what I'm saying is that there is no way you can say there is no data on South Sudan. When you say there is no data, I'll ask you which database did you search. Okay, definitely you should be able to get some data around. Okay, what most of you have been using is Google and Google Scholar. These are their basic search engines. So yes, you can get some articles there, but it does not really give you what I can call quality literature review. So that means therefore that you really need to do usually they say that you need to throw your net wide. When you're fishing, if you throw your net in a way that it does not spread out. You will not catch a lot of fish. So if you throw your net widely, then you can get a lot of fish. So it's the same thing with the literature review. Just do your literature review on Google and Google Scholar. Yeah, you can get something, but not really the best. Okay, so just be aware of that. And then going into this are now a little bit advanced ways of searching for information. If you go to, for example, PubMed, which I say on PubMed you can get research articles on any health topic. Just write PubMed in your browser, and then you see the website that comes called PubMed. Let me see if I have it here. So for example, here, this is PubMed here. This is the National Library of Medicine. Yes, it is owned by the US government, but still you can get information, for example, for Sub-Saharan Africa and even some neighboring countries, and also even in South Sudan, you can still get some information there. On any topic, you can still have. And it allows you to search in the areas where you are basically interested in. So all these subsections or subsets, you can say search for information from there on PubMed. Okay. So when you're going to search for information on PubMed, there are some basic things that you will need to know. One of the issues is what you call, let me call them alternative words. If you're going to look for research articles on the prevalence of hypertension, if you say prevalence of hypertension, and that is what you're going to search, yes, you can get some work, but you may miss out aspects of other articles that do not have the word hypertension, but they have the word high blood pressure. Okay, they have the word high blood pressure. Okay, so that means that when you're searching, and this is one of the limitations that you have, if for you your topic is prevalence of hypertension and the associated risk factors, that is what you're searching for only. You're not twisting the words around, you're not mixing them around, you get few articles. So if you have hypertension, and then in your search you also include something like high blood pressure, you're going to get more information, okay, more articles. So you can use what you call the Boolean operators, and, or, and not. These are actually in capitals, and that is how they are supposed to be used. So if you enter them into the database here, and you see, you enter what you're looking for here, enter the search term, hypertension, and then here you can say and high blood pressure. Okay, and then if there is another word, you can also add that word. Okay, you can also add that word, such that the search looks, you're doing one search but looks for those words in all the research articles. So that is throwing the net wide. So those are about Boolean operators and or. And also these are actually working on Google. On Google, when you are searching, you can use these Boolean operators and they will do you good. Okay. For example, you can be looking for hypertension and you don't want any article that has the word high blood pressure. So you can say hypertension, not high blood pressure. And then the search will come and he will bring you that. So those are Boolean operators. So if you have gotten the research articles, you need to evaluate them. Usually, when you're conducting literature review, the first thing you do about the article is that you read the abstract of that article. Okay, you go through the abstract very fast. You will not be able to read all the whole research article. No, go through the abstract, which usually have a page, and then you'll be able to make a decision on whether to consider it or not. So if you consider it, you note it down, and then later on you come and read that research article and make a decision whether it is worth including in your work or not. Okay, so that ability to evaluate research articles to decide on whether you can include them or not is what we call critical appraisal. Okay, not everything that is out there is worth coming into your research work. Okay, in the future, if you go for further studies, you will be able to conduct what we call systematic appraisal of research articles. We have checklists that you can use, or tools that you can use to evaluate an article and say, yes, this article is okay, or say, no, this article is not okay. But basically, when we are looking for evidence, we are looking for work that is up here. Randomized control trials, cohort studies, and maybe case control, and then prevalence studies, or what you call cross-sectional studies. These ones I think can give you quality evidence. But this is not to say that every article, every randomized control trial is actually a good one. No. You can have a randomized control trial that is poorly designed. So that means that when you get a research article, you need to be able to judge whether it is good or not. So you cannot be able to judge whether a research article is good or bad if you are not good at research. Okay, you need to be able to know the research process, okay, for you to decide. You can't decide something you don't know. But basically, at least there are some articles that you can look at and say, okay, for example, a simple criteria is to say, when was it published? Is it old or is it new? If it is new, then you're like, okay, at least it is not old, it is new, let me read it further. But you cannot go deeper into an article when it is 1980. You're just wasting your time. Okay, so look for recent articles, check if they are really very consistent, and also, of course, like I said, if they are publicized, they have been published in a reputable journal, then perhaps. But still, you also remember the other issue that we talked about, publication bias. So PubMed, I've explained that. You can still, I'm using PubMed as an example for you to be able to use other databases that can have health-related articles, because usually most of them have the same operation. The approach of using them is the same. So here we are saying that still you can limit your searches based on the year, the age, the population, the language, and the publication date. These are things that are also available in Google Scholar. We call them filters. They can be filters. You can purify what articles you want by you deciding some of these parameters that are listed down here. Okay. So we move to PubMed. The other thing is that for every search that you make, PubMed keeps the history of that search, such that if you forget something and you want to go back, you can still go back to your searches and find the history section of your PubMed. We shall try to demonstrate this practically, and you'll be able to see that. And then you have a clipboard that allows you to copy some of your references and put them on that clipboard. Maybe you can transfer them later, or save them, or even print them, so that you can keep track Research requires you to be very organized, such that you don't wake up in the middle of the night and say, there is that article I need it, where can I get it, where did I put it? So PubMed allows you to be able to retrieve your search history, but also to be able to copy that link and paste it somewhere on the clipboard and print it out, or even save it on your computer, such that when you remember it and you want to go for it, you can be able to retrieve it. The last thing that none of you have really asked about, and we have really communicated severely on it, is what we call Hinari. Hinari is a WHO database that contains several books and several research articles. So institutions have what we call institutional access to Hinari resources. So Restore Institute has access to Hinari resources, but none of you has ever asked for these logins. Okay, so you wonder, you want a shortcut, Google, you send your work, and that's it. So that marks the end of this presentation. I hope I've given you sufficient tools, techniques to be able to do very good literature reviews that can really beef up your proposal and make it concrete. If you have any questions, you can